Welcome everyone to the 20th episode of Conversations with T. This is your host T, and I'm back with Coach Key, whose actual name is Keyona Akil. Now, if you're new to my channel, know that Coach Key has been featured in my podcast the most. We spoke about many different topics such as social media, fitting and victim mentality, and sexual assault. She's a self-development coach who specializes in trauma, and she works with women of color. Coach Key also has her own podcast show called Keyona Speaks. I'm so excited to have another conversation with her about a very interesting topic. And yeah, how have you been, Coach? It I'm I'm still finding it difficult to process the fact that this is your last episode for 2022. I do hope you come back in the future for more CWT episodes.
I would love to be on your podcast
Oh,
next. When
yes.
you said episode, I was like, wait a minute. Wow, like that's just amazing. And just to know that, you have invited me multiple times to be on your podcast. I am very, very humbled. I'm very grateful. And I am feeling great to have another amazing conversation with you. And it will not be our last.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. So today's discussion, it's going to be a bit different from the topics that we've spoken about in the past, and we'll be having a discussion about the 9 to 5 culture. So we've been speaking earlier, and you did mention how you began working full time, and you saw a massive difference in your life when you were a coach versus when you started working. So, do you want to share a story with the listeners and myself? I'm very interested to learn about what you experienced, the challenges you have come across, and how you persevered.
Yeah, sure. So I would say like the 9 to 5 culture, it has been something that I've been raised to pursue from a child. I remember my mother and my grandmother stressing the importance of getting a college degree so that I could get a nice corporate job that would, sustain me. And they actually prioritized that over, getting married. So throughout my adolescence up into my young adulthood, I really focused on doing it well in school so that I could get a degree and I can get a nice 9 to 5 job.
Mm.
And I did get the opportunity to work in quote unquote corporate America, but even before then, I worked, what they would call entry level jobs. And I learned at a very early age that hard work is a natural work ethic that I have. Like I work hard, I'm a team player, all these amazing things. But with the last job that I had prior to the one that I got this time, I realized that while I have an amazing skill set that could be, used as an asset with the corporation, it just wasn't my passion. The
Mm.
9 to 5 hustle is not my passion. I love to serve people and help people, and I wanted to do something different. So I took a risk on myself and I became an entrepreneur. Now, the listener may say, well, if you didn't want to work for anybody, why are you back working? Well, I realized that with entrepreneurship that it's like a marathon. You don't start your business and then in a year you're making millions, billions of dollars. Like it takes blood, sweat, and tears really and patience. And I also moved to a new place where I don't know anybody, I don't have any friends. And I started to feel depressed. I started to feel lonely. I started to feel homesick. And I said, I'm going to take a break on coaching because it's not where I necessarily want it to be. And I'm going to go back outside and I'm going to get a job. So I got a job working as a front desk clerk at a hotel. And a part of my passion to serve people and accommodate people is being fulfilled at my job. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it. But what I've learned about working back outside, doing the 9 to 5, is what I took for granted of my free time. Also, I've learned a bit about my own trauma responses and how I show up as an employee at my job, how I engage with our customers. I've learned that, my people pleasing tendencies or the impulsivity to do for people and not to really, take some time to reflect and come up with the best outcome or, problem solve in the most sensible way. So I've learned really a lot about myself as it relates to interacting with people and how I seek validation from people. So it's been an amazing opportunity of learning of self more so than just really going back and, earning stable. I'll say that.
It's sort of like rediscovering yourself, right?
It really is, because I'm not a born Muslim. I converted to Islam 12 years ago. And so I was telling my husband in a conversation recently that growing up with just my mom and my grandmom, they really pushed for me to be an independent Black woman, to rely solely on myself, and to not create that need for a spouse, so to speak. Kind of going back to what I was saying in the beginning of the episode, when they pushed me to excel academically to get a corporate job, it was more so to take care of me. And then if I got married, it would be the icing on the cake. Whereas if you think about it Islamically, men are meant to take care of the women in their household, whether it's a father taking care of his daughters, a brother taking care of his sisters, a son taking care of his mother, a husband taking care of his wife, a father taking care of his daughters. Allah has raised the status of women to be taken care of by men. But as we can see in certain societies, men are not doing what they're supposed to do. They're not taking care of themselves sometimes. And so it's really hard for them to take care of women, or women to even trust that the men in their lives can take care of them. So I found that with my job, part of me, taking such a long time to quit my last job was because I really had this anxiety around quitting my income and relying on my husband's income, because I didn't have that proper example of it. I had my grandmother in one ear and my dad's inability to establish this trust for me to rely on him in the other. So that really sparked my healing journey of, relying on my spouse. But I would say that now, going back to work, I realized the presence that I had in my household, how I maintained my household. And even my husband said that. He's like, I was really an advocate for you to go back to work, but I really miss you being home. Sometimes we're like night and day. I go to work in the morning, I go to work after him, and we won't see each other until maybe late at night, or, just things like that. I just really realized, like, is working outside the home a priority for me? Is it benefiting me or benefiting my family unit, especially with me becoming a mom? Thinking about that. So it's been putting a lot on my mind and reflecting on like, being the corporate woman, the 9 to 5 woman, and like understanding income and provision, and, trusting my spouse, and relying on the provision that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has written for me through him. So it's been a lot of reflection, I would say, that I've been doing these past 3 months working at my job.
And are you familiar with the I'm sorry, are you familiar with the term financial freedom? I'm sure you've heard of it, right?
Yes. And I feel like with the term financial freedom lately, a lot of people have been, taking risk on themselves to become entrepreneurs, because they really want to get to a place where they have autonomy on how they accrue their income. One thing, with kind of going back to what I was saying about the free time, like, many of the people that I used to be super flexible and accessible to, I'm no longer accessible to them. Or when I'm off, they're busy, and when they're free, I'm busy. And so I've been thinking and praying, really, that, when I have my child next year, inshallah, that will be the door opening for my business to really blossom, because I will need that time to be with my child, but I also want to use my talent, my passion to serve people. And so I'm praying that, coaching allows me to still have that, what you would say, financial freedom, and making my own money, but doing it my way. That's one thing I learned from jobs. When you somebody, you got to take their rules, you got to do this, that, and the third. But like with financial freedom, you kind of feel like I'm doing it my way.
Yeah. I also feel as though the term financial freedom has been very glamorized to a lot of us. I mean, I understand why many people seem to love that idea, because having a 9 to 5 job isn't easy. A lot of your time is dedicated towards work, and you would have to give up on a lot of things just so that you don't lose your job and earn. There are some people who have to work extra hard, I believe, because the salary that they're earning on a monthly basis isn't enough to pay for bills, rent, etc. So they may have to push themselves even more until they get promoted or get hired by a different employer or company who might pay them better. Or they may have to add part-time jobs into their schedules, which they can do during the weekends because they need to have enough money in order to survive in this expensive world. And yeah, we're living in very tough times. The rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. What's your take on this?
I definitely agree with you. I feel like social media has definitely made financial freedom highly romanticized, and I think that's why many people give up on the path of establishing financial freedom. I also realized that my grandmother is what you would call a baby boomer. She grew up in the 50s. And so during the time that she was coming up and starting her work career, many jobs had stability where you would work for 30 years, retire and live the rest of your life on a pension. And
Mm,
my grandmother's been working at her job for nearly, I want to say, 33 years, and she has no idea when she's going to finally retire. But I was explaining to her that in my generation, the job security is not there anymore. They're
mm,
not even sure if my generation will even receive Social Security.
mm,
So many of us, we job hop. We work at a job for a certain amount of time, and when we feel like it's not benefiting us, then we go somewhere else. And to the older generation, that may seem like it's instability,
mm,
but our society is not stable to the point where people can give their life to a job, number one. And so it's to the point where people, like you said, have to have multiple streams of income, a full-time job, a part-time job or two, or a full-time job and a side hustle where they may be coaching or door dashing or doing something to
mm.
give them multiple income, because many people give their life to their job and then become dispensable. The job just lays them off or lets them go.
Yeah.
And that's another thing I realized too, is that if you think about the 9 to 5 hours, that is your most productive time of the day. You
Mm,
have a very small window in the morning where you wake up and, tend to yourself, tend to your family. And then a large portion of the day you're working. And then after work, you're trying to tend to yourself, tend to your family. And many people sacrifice the most important things to them, like family, to their job, because there's a sense of fear of income.
mm,
Oh, if I don't work these extra hours, I'm not going to make X amount of money. And I was thinking about that too with my job, reassuring myself that it's not about the money. The money is not going to motivate me to sacrifice my morals, sacrifice overworking, overworking myself at the expense where I don't show up for myself. And so I work with people who literally have put their jobs before their children. And they tell me all the time, if I could do it all over again, I would have taken time off
mm.
and been with my children when they were younger instead of working, 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 putting them in daycare. And now our relationship is very strained. So I even have been learning from my coworkers too.
And I would also like to add that being an entrepreneur, which is the opposite of having a 9 to 5 job, even though it sounds super exciting and maybe even enjoyable, but I wouldn't say it's easy. I think it's even more, it can be even more stressful and difficult than having a 9 to 5 job because it's you who's running your business and not another person. You're in charge of designing your products slash services, and you're the one who's planning your social media content. You get to decide the individuals you want to partner with, and you have to have a budget for printing, marketing, shipping, etc. And there's a lot that can be said about this, but I think you guys get the picture. The thing is, we see results and stories of other people making it in life and in inverted commas, but we don't really hear much about their hardships, pain, self-doubt, relationship problems, and sacrifices that were a part of their journey. Don't you think so?
I totally agree. Because in the beginning of me becoming an entrepreneur, there were so many people that were pushing like even a hustle culture in entrepreneurship where it's kind of like this phrase that they say, I'll sleep when I die. I'm going to, work tirelessly to build my business off the ground. I'm going to break myself down to build my business. And so in the beginning of, becoming an entrepreneur, like you said, you're going to be putting in a lot of time. You don't just start and say, oh, I'm going to choose these hours for myself. No, you don't really start doing that until you start really building sustainable systems for your business. There were times when I exhausted myself with social media because I was marketing myself or engaging with my audience.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, man, I did not anticipate having to do all of this to build a platform, but you have to invest a lot of time into your product, into your service before you really start getting that stable clientele.
Mm-hmm.
And something else I was gonna say, and I lost my whole train of thought. But yeah, entrepreneurship is not easy. But if it's something that you truly believe in, don't give up. Like just because I took a break, it took me a long time to even get to a point where I was willing to just take a break because I was associating my break with quitting. But then I was like, no, being a coach is naturally who I am. And so all I'm doing is allowing myself to stop obsessing and being compulsive about my business and being in a sense of despair about my business not being where it's at. And it's funny because I had forgot for a second that I told my husband I'm going to give my business a year to see, where it's at. And if it's not really where I want it to be, I'll go and get a job so that way I can focus on building my business without associating money to it. And that can take the stress off of building my business. And sometimes people will do that. They'll still be pursuing their entrepreneurship career, but to not lose their passion for their business, they may pick up a part-time job or something just so that they can still have money to pay for their bills while they focus on, enjoying building their business. And that's kind of like something that actually sparked me going back to work, is no longer stressing about the income. And I will also say, like, just in general with working with this job that I'm currently working at, I realized that a lot of the jobs that I held in the past, I accepted them from a survival standpoint. If they chose me, I chose them. And I would show up like a chameleon, being the worker that I thought they wanted me to be. Well, with this job that I'm at right now, when I went into my interview, with standards. I said, my values are faith, family, and service. When my faith is intact, meaning that I can flourish as a Muslim and I can devote time to my salah at work, and also I can devote time to my family, meaning I can take time off. I don't have to always be on call and come in, or I can honor my pregnancy while I'm at work, meaning I can sit down at times because, I stand most of the time at work. Then I can be the utmost person that can provide service, and I can show my employer that I am a asset instead of a liability. And I really pushed what's important to me. What would make me be an excellent employee? Having support from management. I expressed in the interview that when I feel like I'm not supported by management, then I feel like I'm wasting my time and my energy and my currency. Your time and your energy is a currency. Sometimes you just focus on money, but your time and energy, that's a currency too. Then, I don't want to be in this location. So it felt really great to go into that job interview, with standards, letting them know with how to build. In order for us to have this relationship, I need you to be this way. You want me to be a certain type of employee. Well, I need you to be a certain type of employer. And it felt so good.
Oh yeah,
Standing up.
yeah. And yeah, I was just going to add from my experiences of being an entrepreneur. I've never worked a 9 to 5 job, so I wouldn't like talk much about my experiences because I have zero experiences regarding that. But yeah, I'm just going to say that having your own business, it's really not easy. And there were times when I just want to give up. But every time I had that thought, I reminded myself of my why, Like, why am I doing what I'm currently doing? Why should I continue? I mean, why should I continue despite not seeing results? Why should I take this business seriously if other people aren't? Despite the frustrations and challenges that I've come across, I'm still willing to continue with my business because mental health and personal development are among the things which I'm very passionate about, and I have knowledge about these two subjects as I've learned from several coaches slash mentors, and there are certain skills which I'm quite strong at, such as writing, and I I feel as though my knowledge and experiences slash talents would go to waste if I just kept everything to myself and waited for someone else to do the job for me.
I agree with you. I agree with you on everything you said. Referring back to the why is the anchor that keeps you on the path. and then also realizing that you have amazing things to contribute, especially when it's about mental health and emotional health. Like, that's something that the world really, really needs. And we see the scream for help on social media. So knowing that you have something to contribute and that you can help, even if it's just one person a day, that is sufficient. And some people feel like, oh, if you've never worked before, something's wrong. No, like, if you don't have to work for somebody, why? If you can start your financial career, building a brand, building a business for yourself, what I'm saying, go for it. And
Exactly.
so I was going to ask you, since you've been doing this podcast, throughout this year, have people found connections to working with you through your podcast?
Well, there was someone who did want to work with me for her own project, but I mean, we even planned to record an episode together, but it didn't happen, and I never heard back from her. Other than that, I would say no. Um, so I've been the one who was searching for people to feature in my podcast. I was the one who kept knocking people here and there, introducing myself, introducing my business, my work, and asking them if they would be interested in recording an episode with me.
All this is not in vain. Every episode, every conversation that you have created alongside people, the listeners are being impacted by it, and it will open doors for people to become introduced to you and to become interested in you and work with you. I have definitely learned that from the YouTube channel that I created back in 2019, the podcast that I created back in 2019, that I was putting my eggs all in one basket, i.e. Instagram. And when I realized that, I was creating content on different platforms, and I was engaging with people on different platforms, and that, different people will gravitate to you in different ways. And so I realized that my podcast has a way of reaching a certain person. My YouTube channel has a way of reaching a certain person who I engage with on Twitter and in the mental health spaces that I was a part of, on Twitter and even Instagram, that, it's all a part of the journey. It's all the small pieces to the puzzle of helping me fulfill my purpose. As Muslims, I know, we know our purpose is the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I was so focused this go around of not only living my life with the purpose of worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but tying in my passion to help women push through trauma, to heal, to start to become healthy individuals so that they can support and nurture the next generation to be healthy individuals, that I can do that and set my intention to do it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that way I'm double purpose for the same reason, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And so
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that it will be a win-win situation, right?
Yeah, it's definitely a win-win situation, because how can I lose my focus and passion to pursue my business if I realize, like you said, I go back to my why. And I realize also something that new entrepreneurs have to remember is that there are going to be times when you are doing things for free, but you're going to get a return of investment down the line. I've done many free engagements where I've lectured to college students. I've gone to a masajid in my home state and did a free workshop, and that gave me exposure. People started to, they were like, oh, you do this? Oh, I know somebody that I can pass your name on to, or, I would love to work with you. And I had to stop thinking, oh, if they don't do it with me immediately, then, I'm losing out on opportunity. No, you never know when someone will just think about you down the line and be like, oh, yeah, I remember what she said, or I remember that video I watched of her, or that lecture I sat in on, and I'm going to reach out to her. And just knowing that I'm impacting people, even if I don't get a dollar for it, that still feels like the passion is beyond the money, even though I know in the world we live in, we need money.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I'm just like you with the mental health. Like, it's really a passion of mine.
That was very wonderful to hear. Thank you so much, Coach Key. Thank you for taking some time out and um and featuring in my podcast again. I really enjoyed having this discussion with you, and it was it was different and very engaging. I mean, even though our previous conversations were engaging, but I don't know, this this conversation in particular, it was different, but in a good way, right?
Yeah, alhamdulillah, because I think it's really important to put on the table how our perspective of 9 to 5 culture, or working for someone or becoming entrepreneurship, just really putting into perspective different people's experiences about it, and people's journeys, and then also realizing that you can learn a lot about yourself when you have a job, whether it's working for someone or you're creating your own job. So I
Exactly.
really that give me the opportunity to reflect on it, because I've been journaling about it, and I actually have the intention to do a live about what working at a hotel has taught me about myself. So inshallah, I actually do that. But once again, a really great conversation with you about real topics that affect real people.
Mm. Thank you again, Coach Key. I hope the rest of your day goes well. And yeah, this is your last episode for 2022. All the best with your pregnancy, and I hope to see more of you in my podcast and even offline in the future. Inshallah. Take care and bye bye. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. Bye bye.